I am a girl.
I just picked up some tampons.
If you're afraid to use the locker room with a trans person, this is what you're afraid of.
Normalize the bulge. We are normalizing the bulge. Women can have bulges.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So everyone and their mother, or their birthing person, depending on how annoying you are, has insisted that I make a video on Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan is a trans TikToker with 8.5 million followers and who recently have found themselves the topic of a lot of controversial conversations, a lot of backlash, and who actually ended up interviewing the president. Gonna have a lot to say about that. Please believe. Now, Dylan rose to social media fame through their Days of Girlhood videos, in which Dylan is chronicling transition from day one up until day now, which is like 200 and something, and I believe that's like, what, 6 or 7 months? I'm just being honest, the first time I saw one of these videos, which was a few months ago before any of the controversy and before things really got big, I thought it was a parody.
Heels? They're my hiking heels. I love them. Okay, come on.
New York girls don't wear bras. If you run into me on the street, say hi. I'll have a tampon for ya. Love ya.
I genuinely thought it was a transphobic person making fun of trans people. I had not even a hint that this was a real thing until I saw interviews with Dylan and I was like, oh, it's real. And there's a reason why I'm never the first one to do videos about these things, for which I guess I could have months ago when I found this person, but I was really hoping it would just go away. I was really hoping it would just stop. And it didn't. So these Days of Girlhood videos has sparked a ton of backlash because honestly, the things that Dylan purports to be experiencing in these videos, the things that Dylan is acting out in these videos are almost always exclusively derived from the most offensive, stupidest, silliest, most ridiculous stereotypes about women that you can find. Like, it almost seems like Dylan Googled offensive stereotypes about women and just did a video for each of them. Like, that's genuinely what it feels like. It's like, oh, I'm a girl, so I'm crying all the time.
Day one of being a girl, and I have already cried 3 times.
Oh, I'm a girl, so I'm a bimbo.
Day 3 of being a girl, and I've already become a bimbo.
Oh, I'm a girl, so I'm just so scared of bugs.
Love ya.
Ah! Oh. Did you see that? I gotta get out of here.
Dylan also has a pretty strange fascination with tampons.
And just a reminder that people of all genders use tampons, not just women.
Would you want any tampons? I'm just giving them out. Oh, cool. Have some. Anybody need a tampon?
I mean, have you ever seen anyone gaze this lovingly at anything, like, ever? I sure as have never looked at a man like that. Like, I think Jesus Christ himself would have to come down and personally greet me for me to ever look like that. Also, where are you putting that, Dylan? Don't tell me. But the controversy really fired up when beauty brand Ulta dropped a podcast featuring Dylan and another trans person. I don't know who that is.
Now I know I can find love. I know I can still be a performer. I know that I can have a family. I want to be a mom one day. And I absolutely can. And that's why the narrative still has a long way to go, because when I was grieving boy Dylan, I didn't know those things were even accessible to me.
The podcast set the internet on fire, sparking the hashtag boycott Ulta, because women were saying that it felt like it was two males mansplaining what it means to be a girl, and that Dylan couldn't have possibly ever experienced girlhood, which is objectively true. I mean, even if you're gonna go along with the ideological position that trans women are women, that has all to do with being a girl, which is exclusively a child's experience. And the infantilization of being a woman is also really gross.
Hey. Hey. You want to come kayaking? Oh, I'm more of a city girl. Yeah, I get that. Do you have any pets? Yeah, actually, I have a dog. Oh, I have a cat. Oh, I wish we could find some common interest. Well, what are your pronouns? I'm she, they. I'm she, they too. You know what? I could use some nature time. Let's do it. Woohoo!
I forgot that my crotch doesn't look like other women's crotches sometimes, because mine doesn't look like a little Barbie pocket.
I mean, it's one thing, it's like when you're with your friends and you're like, oh, girls' night out. It's another to be like, I'm experiencing girlhood. That's a different thing. And you're literally not, Dylan. I mean, like, you're just not. We talked about the Ulta and Dylan thing on Timcast, so I'll put a clip here so I don't have to rehash it.
TERFs are boycotting Ulta Beauty.
Ugh, I'm not ready.
How dare they?
First of all, the idea that it's TERFs who are upset over the Ulta video seems pretty ridiculous. I mean, I get called a TERF despite the fact that I'm trans and not a feminist, which it's trans exclusionary radical feminist. How am I both of those things? It doesn't make any sense.
This is why I say I feel like this is a troll. Women don't do that. This is not girlhood. There is nothing about wearing high heels while hiking. Women go hiking all the time. They have boots. You go to the REI and they have a women's section for athletic boots. What about being a girl means you wear high heels in the wilderness?
Well, this is a sexist's idea of what women do, right? So it's that's the thing about wokeness, is it always comes full circle. It's like, we're going to erase stereotypes and people are more than the sum of their stereotypes. And now it's back at the point where it's like, actually, we are all just stereotypes.
But this, I understand why people think this individual is making a mockery or trolling them. Like, that's not a real thing.
You know, I don't think Dylan's like trying to offend people. I think Dylan is just such a narcissist that it's just like, you know, this person went viral on TikTok. They have this huge following. I think it's just, this is Dylan being a narcissist, not caring how it looks, right? So it's the over the top, like caricaturized, like, oh, a bug and falling and acting stupid, right? It's like the stupid woman stereotype. So
Now all of a sudden you've got biological males talking about girlhood, and when a woman speaks up, the woman is the problem.
Well, this is the problem with the trans movement in general, and why, like, I learned very early on, even despite being trans, that I didn't want any part of it. You know, it's like, it's not just about you for these people. It's about everyone else as well. So it's not just enough for Dylan to be like, this is me. It's like Dylan saying, this is me, and it doesn't matter how far I take it, everyone just has to be cool with it. You know, like, there used to be this goal within the trans community of like an integration into society, and it's the exact opposite now. Now it's this adversarial relationship, and it's a movement that poses a threat to women and children now, which I don't think any movement that even is perceived that way can survive. Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. It's a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are actually referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. They plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted, and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and actually put it on credit cards, plane tickets, etc., even on your dating profiles. It makes a great last-minute gift. They even have couples packs that come with adjoining plots of land. The first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending how many of you want to become a lord or lady, we can even start a little Blaire White kingdom. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a massive sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Blaire10, you can get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/Blaire10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. And thank you to Established Titles for sponsoring this video. But now back to the video. There were a lot of claims that Dylan is doing woman face, which honestly, it's kind of hard not to see their point when Dylan's entire shtick is offensive stereotypes about women. I mean, it's not as if Dylan is just existing. I don't think trans women are in woman face by simply existing. But when you construct a character based on, I'm afraid of bugs and I cry a lot and I fall all the time, that's woman face. Sorry, I believe that is.
I've already become a bimbo.
It'd be the same thing as like spray painting your skin dark and, I don't know, doing and acting out offensive stereotypes about Black people. I mean, you look at blackface, which is constructing a character for entertainment that is based on harmful stereotypes about Black people. This is literally the same thing. Like, you're literally calling yourself a bimbo, which is a slur created by men that was literally meant to hold women back and refer to women as stupid. And the performance aspect is important, right? Because I actually have watched almost all of these Days of Girlhood videos. Yes, pray for me. Yes, I'm traumatized. But, you know, I didn't want to make this video without watching as many as I could. And I watched most of them. And there were basically none that seemed real, vulnerable, authentic. They were all performative. They were all a character.
And the women's locker room smells so much better than the men's, FYI. And if you're afraid to use the locker room with a trans person, this is what you're afraid of.
I mean, there's a reason why I thought it was a parody at first. I genuinely would have never in a million years thought it was a real person. But since then, you guys, the situation has escalated, because cringe is one thing, right? Embarrassing content is one thing, right? I've done some embarrassing content. I've done some stuff that I'm like, ew, looking back. But when the president of the United States invite you to the White House to speak on behalf of a community of people, that's another thing. And you know, I'm gonna have a problem with that. No, I'm not kidding. A whopping 6 months into transition, Dylan Mulvaney was chosen out of every single other person in the trans community to speak to Joe Biden, President of the United States.
Mr. President, this is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love you.
Yes, Dylan has girl bossed into the White House, and Dylan is arguably one of the most powerful trans people on the planet now. I mean, if you are invited to the White House as a representative and a spokesperson of an entire community of people, that is a pretty big deal. And that's why I'm also not accepting any Blaire White's bullying a trans person narratives, because if a representative at the White House, a spokesperson for people like me, for an entire community of people, is beyond reproach, who can you criticize? I mean, you must have a really warped sense of like power dynamics to think that me, a YouTuber, should be unable to criticize someone who is in the White House speaking on my behalf. I mean, sorry, you asked for it. And I'm sorry, but I don't want a tampon loving, girlhood obsessed, Barbie pocket having weirdo 6 months into transition representing me to the president of the country I live in. I mean, granted, we all know the kind of president we have at this point. There's no way Joe Biden even at this point remembers who that person is or what conversation they had, right? And honestly, watching the video is kind of like watching a clown and a corpse converse.
God love you.
Cringe. I mean, honestly, the only thing that could have made this better is if Dylan sang their hit song to Joe.
Normalize the bulge. We are normalizing the bulge. Women can have bulges, and that's okay. We're not gonna stare at their crotches while they're wearing their little shopping shorts at the mall.
Now, what did Dylan do upon having the amazing opportunity of having the ear of the President of the United States? Advocated for children transitioning, advocated for puberty blockers.
This is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love you.
Thank you. I am extremely privileged to live in a state that allows me access to the resources I need, and that decision is just between me and my doctors.
As an adult, sure, but still within reason, right? Doctors are not allowed to do whatever they want with a patient. Patients are not allowed to demand whatever they want from a doctor, and certainly not within limitations and standards of practice set in place via law. And certainly not when it comes to children, when it comes to seeking plastic surgery or drugs that destroy their fertility for life.
But many states have lawmakers that feel like they can involve themselves in this very personal process. Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming healthcare?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
And there's the divide that no one in this country is willing to compromise on, and rightfully so, right? Dylan Mulvaney and Joe Biden think it's absolutely wrong and absolutely immoral to stop children from seeking out permanent plastic surgery, drugs that destroy their fertility, and becoming lifelong medical patients before they can even grab a driver's license. And normal people think that that's Fun fact, by the way, Dylan's state, California, my home state, actually bans minors from using tanning beds because of the permanent and long-lasting implications for health. Yes, California thinks that minors are not intellectually mature enough to use a tanning bed, but absolutely intellectually mature enough to remove their breasts, to become sterile, to have sex changes. There's a reason why I moved, you know?
You know, I think I was saying before we started that my deceased son, used to be the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He passed the broadest piece of legislation that he, as Attorney General, was able to convince the legislature and the governor to sign.
What? You know, if I look at this interview as like performance art, high art, I actually see the value in it. Because few things actually represent the decline of America like this video. I mean, you have a functionally brain-dead president who has no idea why he's in the room, an expert who is an expert at nothing, who also probably has no idea why they're in the room, and everyone just smiles, nods, and follows their lead. Can we talk about Dylan's obsession with girlhood now? Because I think it's time to unpack that. Dylan's whole shtick is claiming to be a girl, not a woman. And, you know, I mean, as I've always said, as an adult trans woman, I will never know what it is to be a woman. I know what it is to be a transsexual. I know what it is to be a trans woman, which is a very specific thing. But womanhood itself, never gonna experience it. Also never experience girlhood because I transition as an adult. It's like I grew up a boy. This is my story. You can't just rewrite your story. You can't start as a child at 25 years old, which Dylan is. I think Dylan's 25. And I mean, Dylan, even if you follow the trans women are women mantra and truly believe that, that still wouldn't make you a girl. To where you need to be referring to genitals as Barbie pockets, acting like a toddler, pretending as if you're going through puberty and need to use tampons. And again, I like how the side that always screams about misinformation is just smiling and nodding while Dylan is spreading the lie that trans women use tampons, right? And I mean, that's a lie that's just permitted so commonly that I actually do see people on social media asking if trans women use tampons and genuinely want to know. I have had people ask me if I use tampons. Baby, I've never touched a tampon. Why would I ever? Like, shout out to menstruation, but that's not a struggle I would choose to have. I don't feel like I'm missing out. Like, fucking weird. It's weird. It's just weird. And then you have the normalizing the bulge thing. So I'm not gonna pretend like I have some deep, insightful commentary for this, other than like, just tuck your dick. Like, just do it. Let's not hang out with our dicks out. Like, that's not, okay, I do have some commentary. There is something to be said about a social contract, right? If you want to be a trans woman and you want to transition, I know a lot of people are triggered by the concept of self-responsibility, but there is some responsibility on you to make that transition and that integration to society somewhat smooth, right? And that kind of includes if you're going to be dressing like a girl, taking hormones to appear as a girl, having surgeries to, like, you don't rock out with your cock out. I don't care. No one wants to see it. And it's weird that you want people to see it because clearly you want people to see it. You don't have to wear clothes that highlight that part of your body. I mean, there are times if I don't feel like I'm just going to be very real here. There are days where I don't want to tuck. It's painful. It's not, the most comfortable thing to have going on. However, you can wear clothes where you don't have to tuck. There are outfits and silhouettes you can choose to wear even if you do not tuck, that is not visible. And yeah, you can do whatever you want. This is America, but also like, don't expect people to not be grossed out by the fact that you're walking into Macy's with your dick hanging out. I mean, going around enforcing female pronouns with people and perfect strangers while having a dick hanging out is literally South Park level behavior. This is literally like, again, because Dylan loves being a caricature, this is literally what a transphobic person would write a trans character as. Someone with a dick out saying, call me she. That is you, Dylan. Clownery. So women out there, if you're offended that Dylan is acting out these offensive stereotypes having to do with y'all, rest and assured transsexuals are just as annoyed and pissed off because it's gross. But again, cringy, embarrassing behavior is one thing. I would have never made a video just about that. But when you're at the White House talking about children and their need to transition and their need to undergo these surgeries that we know are harmful to them, anyone who goes to the White House talking about kids need to transition, you're gonna get a Blaire White video made about you, period. Also, there's an issue arising of people saying that Dylan is an actor. And this is all just a troll. People have looked into Dylan's past and found that Dylan has actually had some small acting roles. Dylan is basically a failed actor. I mean, never popped off from the small roles that they got and has appeared on The Price is Right, the Ellen DeGeneres show. And when you look at things like that, when you get on The Price is Right, when you get on the Ellen DeGeneres show and you're there to dance but not as a star, right? These are the gigs that people in LA who are very money hungry, very fame hungry go for. This is like the first step on the ladder to becoming famous. And having lived in LA and been around the industry and known all types of people that are doing these things, people who end up on The Price is Right and people who ended up dancing on the Ellen show are the kind of people that are sitting on their computers 24/7 applying to literally everything, fishing for literally anything, any role, any gig. And it's no shade to you, like more power to you if that's your thing. However, I'm just saying that is the hallmark of someone who is fame hungry and just wants to break into the industry any way they can, right? But never popped off until identifying as trans.
Day one of being a girl, and I have already cried 3 times. I wrote a scathing email that I did not send. I ordered dresses online that I couldn't afford. And then when someone asked me how I was, I said, I'm fine, when I wasn't fine. So, how'd I do, ladies?
So it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, did Dylan secretly feel trans all the time, that going on these TV shows as a boy, or did nothing pop off from those shows, so it was time for plan B? Like, there's no way to really know that. There's no way to really get into Dylan's head. However, nothing did bring Dylan fame until identifying as trans, and then it was like a skyrocket, and there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about the climate that we live in, that you can be talentless, Because Dylan isn't funny. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. This is literally like saying like a meal prepared by a chef, if it's bad, if it's just bad, right? It doesn't mean the chef's a bad person. It's just like the chef gave me a meal. It's cold. Take it back. Dylan's not funny. Dylan's not a great actor. You can see through it. But what Dylan is great at is getting attention on the backs of women and trans people. And just some inside baseball or whatever, I do know several people that do know Dylan, have been around Dylan, and Dylan, in my opinion, does truly identify as trans, only in the sense of like, it's not as if when the cameras aren't there, Dylan's like, I'm a dude. Like, that's not what's happening apparently. From what I've heard, Dylan is trans. I've also heard Dylan's kind of an I've heard Dylan's the kind of person that is letting this all kind of get to their head, and like if you don't kind of bow down and show like complete adoration for Dylan, it's kind of like a snooty like, ugh, what are you doing type of thing. That's all speculation, right? Like, I've heard that from someone I consider to be highly credible who is much more famous than Dylan in the trans community. That's an anecdote. You can take it or leave it. There's no reason for you to take that. Just saying, though. So I think it's a gray area. I think that Dylan might actually be trans. Dylan might actually be on estrogen or whatever have you, but that also Dylan is doing some really cringe, embarrassing, and offensive shit to both women and trans people, and doesn't really care because it's getting them fame. Which is one thing on its own, right? Because I see that all the time. But not everyone's going to the White House to speak for all of us. And this person does not speak for me. This person does not speak for any transsexuals I know. And so I think it's ultimately just a shame that we live in a society where it feels like people are rewarded for like all the wrong things and all the wrong behavior. I love you guys. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as my podcast channel. I'll put that link in the description. I really encourage you guys to watch the podcast because I have so much fun with it. It's so much more of a loose format where I'm actually able to just speak very freely, very long form, and just rant. So if you're more of a getting the real Blaire, not like an edited packaged video, that podcast channel is going to be for you. Not that I don't love doing these videos as well. Obviously, this is my main steez. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.